Welcome, aficionados of the macabre and suspense, to the Highlighted Pages channel. Today, we will embark on a literary journey filled with mystery, terror, and unease, guided by the brilliant mind of one of the masters of the genre. In this video, we will explore the best Edgar Allan Poe stories for all time. Through disturbing tales and chilling poetry, Poe invites us to delve into a world of psychological horror and mystery. Are you ready? So, without further ado, let's get started. Edgar Allan Poe, known for his suspenseful and horrifying stories and poems, left a literary legacy that endures to this day. His tormented characters, dark atmospheres, and sinister twists have captivated readers worldwide, making him an icon of the genre and an immortal figure in literature. Born in Boston in 1809, Edgar was the first American writer known to attempt to make a living solely through writing, resulting in a financially challenging life and career. His career began humbly, with the publication of an anonymous collection of poems in 1827, known as Tamerlane and Other Poems. Since then, his career in the genre has been marked by timeless classics that influenced an entire generation to write stories and poems in an innovative way. So, join us on this thrilling literary journey as we unravel the mysteries and hidden secrets within the pages of Edgar Allan Poe's finest stories. Number 10. The Murders in the Rue Morgue. Published in 1841, The Murders in the Rue Morgue is widely considered the first detective story in literature and one of Poe's most famous works. This groundbreaking tale introduced the world to the amateur detective C. Auguste Dupin, who later became a model for many other fictional detectives. This story is set in Paris, where a series of brutal and mysterious murders occur in the Rue Morgue. The victims are the mother and daughter, Madame L'Espanaye and Mademoiselle Camille. The crime is committed in such a bizarre and savage manner that the police are baffled and unable to solve it. It is in this scenario that the insightful Dupin comes into play. He is an eccentric man with a brilliant mind and a unique ability to observe and deduce. Alongside the anonymous narrator of the tale, Dupin begins to investigate the murders, meticulously analyzing the evidence and examining every detail of the crime scene. Throughout the narrative, Dupin unravels the seemingly unsolvable mysteries of the murders, arriving at a surprising conclusion that the police could never have imagined. His brilliant reasoning and logic lead to a shocking revelation about the identity of the murderer and the motivation behind the crimes. This Edgar Allan Poe tale left a lasting legacy in literature and inspired countless detective stories over the years. His creation of the character Dupin and his masterful storytelling redefined the suspense and mystery genre, setting the standard for future fictional detectives. If you haven't yet read this classic of the genre, it's worth reading to understand how it all began. Number 9. Annabelle Lee, one of Poe's most well-known and emotionally charged works, celebrated for its lyrical beauty and tragic love story, and first published in 1849 after the author's death. Here we have the marvelous poem Annabelle Lee. The poem is narrated in the first person by the protagonist, who reminisces about his eternal love for a young woman named Annabelle Lee. They grew up together as children and fell deeply in love when they were young. Their love was so pure and intense that it aroused envy among the angels in heaven. However, something untimely occurs, described as a wind that blew out of a cloud, and it ends up separating the couple. The protagonist mourns the loss of his beloved and attributes blame to the jealous angels, who allowed their envy to part with them. The protagonist's love for Annabelle continues even after this event. He believes that the occurrence would not be enough to truly separate their souls and that their connection with Annabelle is so strong that they will remain together forever. Annabelle Lee is a powerful expression of eternal love and the persistence of love between a couple. Poe's poetic language is rich and evocative, creating an atmosphere of sadness and longing. The poem touches the hearts of readers with its poetic beauty and its tale of tragic love. It is one of Edgar Allan Poe's most cherished and studied works, and its influence can be seen in various literary and cultural works over the years. Number 8. The Cask of Amontillado. The Cask of Amontillado, published in 1846, is another of Edgar Allan Poe's dark tales, filled with suspense and sinister twists. The story is narrated in the first person by Montresor, an Italian nobleman, who reveals his diabolical plans for revenge against his friend Fortunato. Montresor claims that Fortunato has repeatedly insulted him, and so he decides to exact his revenge. During the carnival, Montresor encounters Fortunato and convinces him to accompany him to his wine cellar to taste a rare wine called Amontillado. Montresor exploits Fortunato's vanity and love for wines to lead him to a dark and secluded part of the cellar, where he plans to carry out his revenge. As the two progress through the cellar, Montresor leads Fortunato deeper and deeper, enclosing him with bricks and mortar. Fortunato, intoxicated by wine and trusting Montresor, fails to perceive the imminent danger. The atmosphere becomes increasingly eerie and oppressive as Montresor continues to steer his victim toward his grim fate. In the end, Montresor places the final brick in the wall that imprisons Fortunato and coldly laments the terrible act he has just committed. He reveals that no remorse torments him, and the revenge has been successfully executed. The Cask of Amontillado is celebrated for Edgar Allan Poe's ingenuity and narrative skill. The tale is a masterful example of Poe's Gothic style, exploring themes of revenge, betrayal, madness, and psychological darkness. The engaging narrative and the surprising ending are trademarks of Poe's literary genius. Number 7. Eleonora, one of the beautiful and melancholic works by Edgar Allan Poe. Published in 1842, Eleonora is a Gothic tale that narrates the story of love and loss of the narrator, whose life is shaped by the presence of his cousin and beloved, Eleonora. The narrator lives in an isolated and paradisiacal valley, surrounded by stunning landscapes and an almost supernatural atmosphere. Eleonora, his cousin, is his only companion in this idyllic setting. Together, they share a deep and pure love, so intense that it becomes an extension of their souls. However, the narrator's happiness is ephemeral, as Eleonora is afflicted by a mysterious and terminal illness. Seeing her weaken, the narrator is haunted by the prospect of losing her forever. Throughout the tale, the narrator explores themes such as transcendent love, fleeting beauty, and loss. Edgar Allan Poe's poetic and emotive language lends an aura of mystery and melancholy to the story, capturing the narrator's deep and complex feelings. Eleonora is a tale that delves into the human heart and its deepest emotions, and it is widely considered one of Edgar Allan Poe's most touching and moving works. Number 6. The Masque of the Red Death, another classic Gothic tale by Allan Poe. The Masque of the Red Death was published in 1842, where Poe describes a lavish party in an isolated abbey, hosted by Prince Prospero to avoid the spread of the Red Death, a terrible epidemic plaguing the country. Prince Prospero invites his high society friends to an extravagant celebration, where the rooms are decorated in extravagant and flamboyant colors. However, outside the fortified walls, the Red Death ravages the people, causing death and despair. Despite this, the prince and his guests live in a world of pleasure and denial, attempting to escape the dark reality that surrounds them. During the party, a strange and macabre figure appears in the main hall, dressed in a blood-stained shroud and bearing the semblance of the Red Death. Prince Prospero, incensed by the unwanted presence, pursues him through the abbey until they reach the Black and Red Room, where he meets his demise. Poe's story addresses themes such as the inevitability of death, the futility of trying to escape it, and the arrogance of those who seek to ignore the reality of human suffering. The eerie atmosphere, descriptive language, and symbolism in the tale contribute to its lasting impact and relevance to this day. Without a doubt, The Masque of the Red Death is one of Edgar Allan Poe's most notable works and continues to captivate readers with its insight into human nature and death. Number 5. The Pit and the Pendulum. If psychological terror appeals to you, then this tale is for you. Written in 1842, The Pit and the Pendulum is a harrowing and claustrophobic story in which Poe narrates the terrible fate of a prisoner during the Spanish Inquisition. The tale begins with the anonymous narrator describing his desperate situation. He is imprisoned in a dark and damp cell, not knowing where he is or why. He is unable to recall the events that led him there, which further increases his terror. As the narrator explores his cell, he discovers that the floor is made up of a dark and bottomless pit. As he approaches the pit, almost falling in, he realizes that he is surrounded by pools of water. Eventually, he finds a helping hand that offers water and bread to alleviate his hunger and thirst. While the narrator tries to calm himself, He realizes that his captor plans to kill him using an ingenious and terrifying instrument of torture, a sharp pendulum that moves slowly toward him. As the pendulum draws nearer, the narrator desperately struggles to escape. The Pit and the Pendulum is a masterful story that explores the terror of impending death and the psychological anguish of being at the mercy of unknown and cruel forces. The skillfully constructed narrative and the atmosphere of mounting terror have made this tale one of Edgar Allan Poe's most celebrated and influential works. Number 4. The Black Cat, a tale of psychological horror, published in 1843. Here we have one of Poe's most disturbing stories, which explores themes such as guilt, insanity, and the manifestation of evil. The Black Cat is narrated in the first person by an unnamed protagonist, who begins to recount his story as a warning about how fate led him to ruin. He describes himself as someone who, in his youth, had a natural inclination for animals and was particularly fond of black cats. The narrator's life takes a drastic turn after he encounters a black cat named Pluto, which becomes his favorite pet. However, due to issues with alcohol and growing inner rage, the protagonist begins to mistreat Pluto and ultimately gouges out one of its eyes. Consumed by guilt, he decides to hang the Pua cat from the backyard tree. The protagonist's dark fate takes another twist when he encounters a cat similar to Pluto in a tavern. He brings it home, but soon notices a white mark on its fur that resembles a gallows. From that moment on, the cat's behavior changes, and the protagonist becomes even more disturbed. The terror and anguish of the tale escalate as the narrator grapples with his own madness and the mystery behind the macabre appearance of the cat. The Black Cat is a masterpiece of psychological suspense and horror that showcases Edgar Allan Poe's skill in exploring the depths of the human psyche. The tale is a chilling plunge into the mind of the disturbed narrator, leaving the reader with a sense of unease and discomfort. Number 3. The Raven. Here we have Allan Poe's most famous and iconic poem, known for its dark and haunting atmosphere. The Raven was published in 1854 and begins with a lonely narrator in his home, deeply saddened by the loss of his beloved Lenore. He is reading to try to forget his pain, but ends up falling asleep. In the stillness of the night, he is awakened by a mysterious tapping at his door. Upon opening it, he finds no one there, only darkness and the echo of nevermore. Soon, he hears a repetitive sound outside his window and, upon opening it again, is confronted by a talking raven. The raven enters his house and perches on a bust above the door, continuously repeating nevermore. The narrator tries to converse with the raven, but its responses are always the same, deepening his agony and reminding him of his loss. As the poem progresses, the narrator sinks into a state of melancholy and despair, projecting his own emotions onto the figure of the raven. The image of the black bird and its repetitive message of nevermore haunt the narrator, echoing his eternal grief and the impossibility of escaping sorrow. The Raven is known for its rich language, dark symbolism, and musical rhythm. Its poetic construction and anguishing atmosphere have made it one of Edgar Allan Poe's most influential and popular works, establishing him as a master of the horror genre and Gothic literature. Furthermore, its rhythmic structure and use of the refrain nevermore add a chilling touch to the narrative, making this poem, undoubtedly, one of the most iconic works in Gothic literature. Number 2. The Fall of the House of Usher, another great classic of Gothic literature, written in 1839. The Fall of the House of Usher follows the unnamed protagonist, a childhood friend of Roderick Usher, as he visits the decadent and mysterious Usher family mansion. The narrator receives a letter from his friend Roderick, requesting his presence at the Usher house as he is suffering from an unknown illness. Concerned for Roderick's condition, the narrator travels to the isolated and eerie mansion, which appears to be in decay and ruins. Upon arriving at the house, the narrator finds Roderick Usher, a pale and tormented man plagued by fears and phobias, living with his twin sister, Madeline. Roderick reveals that both twins suffer from a disease that makes them highly sensitive to external stimuli, and they share a supernatural and psychic bond. As the story unfolds, strange and disturbing events occur in the house, with visions of shadows, unexplained sounds, and a growing atmosphere of terror. Madeline seemingly dies and is buried in the house's basement, but her spirit haunts the mansion. Tension escalates as a storm ravages the region and Roderick's mental condition deteriorates rapidly. In a chilling climax, Madeline rises from the dead and confronts Roderick, leading to the final destruction of the House of Usher, as the narrator flees in terror. The fall of the House of Usher is known for its dark and claustrophobic atmosphere, as well as its psychological and supernatural depictions. The story explores themes of decay, isolation, and the eerie power of the human mind. Edgar Allan Poe's work continues to captivate readers and influence horror literature and cinema, making The Fall of the House of Usher one of his most revered and chilling stories. Number 1. The Telltale Heart. And let's conclude with the most chilling tale written by the master Edgar Allan Poe. The Telltale Heart was published in 1843, and its story is narrated by an unnamed protagonist who claims to be sane and sensible, but alleges to have an acute disease that sharpened his senses. He attempts to convince readers of his sanity despite his horrendous actions. The narrator lives with an old man whose strange and disturbing eye torments him. Driven by a morbid obsession, the narrator decides to eliminate the old man to rid himself of that evil eye. For 7 nights, the narrator watches the old man in the darkness but does no harm to him. On the 8th night, the narrator is overcome by madness and attacks the old man while he sleeps. After committing the terrible act, he dismembers the body and hides the pieces beneath the floorboards of the room. Despite his apparent perfection in the crime, guilt torments him. Over time, the police appear to investigate a neighbor's report of a scream heard on the night of the murder. The narrator receives them calmly, believing that his crime was perfect and that there is no evidence to incriminate him. However, as the officers converse, the narrator begins to hear a loud, deafening sound, which he imagines to be the old man's heartbeat, growing louder with each passing second. The deafening noise becomes unbearable, and the narrator succumbs to guilt, confessing the crime and revealing the hidden body beneath the floorboards. The Telltale Heart is known for its intense and insightful narrative, portraying the psychological deterioration of the protagonist and the manifestation of his guilt through a pulsating heartbeat. It is one of Edgar Allan Poe's most iconic works and continues to be one of the most influential and chilling stories in all of literature. And thus, we have reached the end of our immersion into the fascinating universe of Edgar Allan Poe. His disturbing stories, filled with suspense and terror, have taken us to dark and intriguing worlds where our deepest fears come to life. But before we depart, I want to hear from you, dear viewers. Which Edgar Allan Poe story stirred your emotions the most? Please leave in the comments the title of the tale that impacted you the most and share your experiences with fellow fans of the Master of the Macabre. And if you haven't yet read any of these masterpieces, don't waste any time. Explore the world of Edgar Allan Poe and allow yourself to delve into narratives that challenge the mind and send shivers down the spine. We appreciate all of you for joining us on this dive into the fantastic realm of the Master of Terror. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more spine-tingling content like this. Until next time, brave adventurers of macabre literature. And remember, in the darkest corners of Edgar Allan Poe's imagination, there will always be stories that will echo through eternity, captivating and haunting us for a lifetime.